So now I kind of want to go a little bit more in depth in what my thinking is in binding some of this stuff. So we'll start with melee. It's my favorite combat style. I rest the four fingers on my left hand on ASDF, so I figured that's a good place to have my basics bound. And then I also have Fury and Sacrifice G and H just next to it in case, for whatever reason, these are all on cooldown. Or I need to stun something. Like, this is really good. Well, I guess that's D, never mind. This is really good for the Ambassador, that's why I have this here. But, ASDF, and then I have my thresholds right above them. QWER. And this has just always felt natural and comfortable to me. That's why I use this. I don't have to move a whole lot to do anything here. Now, Berserk is on C, and the reason I have it on C is so I can quickly move down, equip my Ring of Vigor with X, and use Berserk on C in a quick fluid motion. And once that's done, I go over and I click V to equip my Ring of Death, and then B to do Greater Barge. And that'll get you into, Berserk rotation with Greater Barge. Then I just fly on back up here, use a basic. I could even drink an Adren Pot if I wanted to, so VBN, use a basic, and then I'm ready to go with Bleeding my Assault. So it's all kind of a pretty quick fluid motion. I don't have to move my hand a whole lot. It kind of rests on this half of the keyboard, which is nice. I've got my defensives set up here just because I've gotten used to them being there, and I use the number pad for this. So what I'll do is I'll have, delete 1 will turn on Soul Split and Turmoil. If I need, protection prayers, they're all on 4, 5, and 6. This is great for like Glacier or Raksha when you need to switch really quick. 2 and 3, I have a Cerebrew and a Super Restore. And then 0, I have Eat Food. I just figure, you need to restore these things. Having them next to all your kind of defensive stuff is going to be super beneficial. What I want to point out with this setup is 7, 8, 9 is what I use to Rezo Switch. So if I know like Vindy's range attack is incoming, I will switch to my shield with 7. I'll press 8 to Resonance, and then once I see that I've been healed from the attack, I'll hit 9, and that takes care of my Revo Switch. I don't have to move. And then I also have other defensive abilities kind of in and around there. Debilitate is the big plus sign. Anticipation, Freedom. We've got Devotion right up there. So, what I would recommend for you if you're trying to set up your keybinds is to think about how you need to use these fluidly without thinking. Like Provoke, you don't tend to, at least the way I've used it in the past, you don't tend to want to use anything else with it. I'm just thinking like Calphite King, you're definitely going to want to Provoke 7, 8, 9 in my case. But Provoke has always just lived here, and that's where I'm used to it, so it's just going to live here. Whatever gets you into that muscle memory and gets you to feel comfortable. I'm still playing around with a few of these things. Like I haven't used any of these yet. I don't know that it's going to be very intuitive rather than just clicking on it in my inventory. I like to have my inventory open at all times. So we'll see how it works out, but for now, I think this is going to be a good solid PVM setup for me. One thing I could do maybe is move Limitless to like Shift Q or something like that to be able to pop off an assault a little bit quicker, but I don't know. I mean, it's not even really that much of a hindrance to me personally. I have Warrior's Retreat. I don't know what this symbol is, but I have it bound to that squiggly line. It's out of the way enough but still accessible enough that I don't accidentally ever click it during a fight. But I always know right where it's at in case I need to click it super quickly. I have some other ultimates on here. I don't know that I'll ever use them. Meteor Strike, I use at the Twin Furies, but not really any other time. I've got like the Scythe Switch. If I'm running 83, it's solid to have that on hand. One thing I might want to look into figuring out is another place I can put this that's a little more intuitive than 9. For doing stuff like 83, where, you know, maybe you're going to want to hit a group of opponents with your Scythe, but then, you know, Terrakin summons the Rift, so you're like, oh shit, I don't know. Something like that, I'll figure it out. I don't think there's anything particularly special about the way I have ranged set up. No, not really. I mean, it's got the same thing with the bladed dive switch. You know, so once I do that, I'll have to switch back, and I gotta figure out something a little bit better for that. Although I don't use ranged very much, because the way I have it set up now is when I use my bladed dive switch, I shift S to switch back to my Ascension, which opens my, or loads my ranged bars, but then the places I have the chaotic crossbow bound are 9 and B, and I'll go over that in a second. So, I don't know, I might figure it out. Again, I don't use range that often, and even when I do, I don't really know of a situation where I would use a bladed dive switch with ranged. Moving on to magic, this one's a little bit odd. I don't know, I feel like I need more keybinds because, you know, they're spells. So every single piece on this bar is going to be open. By the way, this is take from your Beast of Burden. I don't have that on the other bars because I just finished setting this up and I haven't loaded a Beast of Burden, so I haven't been able to find this icon yet. But mage setup is pretty similar. You know, got Resonance 7, 8, 9, goes right back. I wanted to talk about this. So I have ranged and mage. I have a planted feet switch. Now I screwed up here by putting planted feet on an orb on an offhand when I'm running primarily two-handed. So what I had to do is I had to put Shift Z as a wand switch, even though planted feet is on my orb. So what I have to do when I'm doing ranged is I'll do Z to load my Shadow Glaive that has planted feet, X for my Ring of Vigor, C for Death Swiftness, and then I'll go VB, and everything's back in place. With Mage, it's a little different. I just have to press Shift Z rather, Z, X, and then I can Sunshine with my planted feet switch, and then I go VB to get these things back on correctly. Now, when I upgrade rings, get a Channeler's Ring or a Reaver's Ring, this will probably change, and I'll have to find another place for a Ring of Death switch. But I don't know. I think right now this is a fairly intuitive setup. Let's see. Load there. So yeah. So like on my melee setup, I'll have UI as my dual wield keybinds, and then I'll have my ZGS on Y. So those are all kind of right there, depending on when I need them. But when I switch over to Mage, that's going to switch to an Essence of Finality attack. And it will for range too, once I get an Essence of Finality. But I got Tsunami there, and that's Shift S. All your keybinds, I didn't say this before, but all your keybinds have to be the same on if you haven't loaded as an additional action bar. So otherwise I could set this up a little more intuitively, but I think given the circumstance, this is probably the best setup. for me. So once I get used to using these two spells in tandem, I may need to figure out a different keybind here, but that could probably come in time. I should probably keybind this to, I don't have a Suck Cape yet, but when I do, this will need a home. That definitely needs a keybind. Let's see, I used to have that under I, but that's going to be my Bladed Dive switch. I'm more used to that. So I could keybind this as like O, I guess. Yeah, that works. Now, because I've keybound that there, what does that do? With melee, it just makes Pulverize O, and with ranged, it just makes Ricochet. Oh, so yeah, I mean, it is what it is, you know. Set your keybinds up, it's very important for PVM. Get used to them, be comfortable with them. Another thing I will say is I have a pretty janky, kind of terrible, I don't know, stock Microsoft wireless keyboard and mouse. They're fine, they do the trick. But some pretty hardcore PVM friends of mine have recommended getting a mouse with buttons. I could see the value in it. I don't have one, so I don't know how good it is, what I would put on there for a keybind. But having a mouse there, being able to keep your hand where you can use it to move, while also being able to trigger some of these keybinds would be excellent. So in the near future, that's probably something I'll explore, but for now, I'm working with what I got. I think this is pretty good. Oh, I have Surge next to Bladed Dive. I just feel like that's a good, you know, parameter for movement. Come on, there we go. I can just switch back to Mage.